What's up everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Sid Vicious and today we're diving into the Path of Exile 2's Endgame, specifically focusing on Waystones, mapping, and all the mechanics that come with it. This is going to be a beginner's guide, so if you just hit the endgame or you're feeling overwhelmed by the complexity of PoE 2's maps, don't worry, we'll break it all down so you can start mapping confidently and efficiently. When you first reach the endgame, you'll be at a place called the Ziggurat, a refugee camp that serves as your gateway to the endgame mapping system. Here, you'll meet Doriani, an NPC who sells Waystones. Early on, he primarily offers tier 1 Waystones for around 5,000 gold each. Also, don't stress too much about the cost. Gold becomes plentiful, and these tier 1 Waystones help you get your feet wet in the new system. Use them to run your initial maps and get a feel for how things work before worrying about advanced strategies. Let's start by understanding Waystones and map tiers. Waystones replace the traditional maps from PoE 1. They come in tiers that represent difficulty and monster level. The way it's represented is white maps are tiers 1 through 5, yellow maps are tiers 6 through 10, and then red maps which are 11 and above. Each jump from white to yellow and yellow to red brings a little bit of a difficulty increase. Think of it as stepping stones, starting with white maps to kind of get into the endgame, then moving up to yellow and red as your characters get stronger and improve. For our next topic, we're going to talk about juicing your maps. What does everyone mean when they say juice your maps? Maps start as white or normal. You can juice them by adding mods to increase both their difficulty and rewards. So the first thing that most people refer to is magic maps, which are also called blue maps. The way you achieve this is using a transmutation orb, then an augmentation orb to add 2 mods to the map itself. Now the second thing you can do is making them what's considered rare maps, or some people call them yellow. In PoE 1, players used alchemy orbs and they called it alchemy maps, but in PoE 2, alchemy orbs are rare. Instead, use a transmute, augmentation, and then a regal orb to create a rare map with 3 mods instead. Now if you're feeling bold, you can even add an exalt on top of the map itself to get 4 different mods. And on top of that, if you want even more difficulty, you can Val Orbit to create a corrupted version. Now, a Val Orb can create multiple outcomes for a Waystone. First, it can downgrade the level of the map, it can do absolutely no change, or it can also add more mods to the map itself, and the best outcome is it can upgrade the tier of the map. This is how you get tier 16 maps. You may ask, why juice our maps? More mods equal tougher enemies, but what it results in is better loot. Start with just magic maps and progress your way to rare when you feel comfortable with your build. Don't overjuice it if your build isn't ready for it. Some map mods to avoid are things that reduce your maximum resistance, things that reduce your recovery of life and energy shield, and even the monsters have crit chance and crit damage. This will have normal enemies one-shot you out of nowhere. Moving on, let's talk about the Atlas and the map device itself. Once you have your Waystone ready, head to the map device. You'll see yourself with a massive Atlas map with a bunch of connected nodes, etc. Each node represents a map area you can travel to using your Waystones. The layout differs for every player, so your map might look completely different than someone else's. Now the general tips are the green nodes are the ones you've completed. Once you've completed a map, you cannot go back to it. On the left, there is a legend to help you figure out what some of these icons mean. At first, just focus on connecting from one node to the next. Each node you complete reveals more of the Atlas, guiding you through different terrains like biomes, and these biomes do come in handy later, but for now just acknowledge that certain maps have biomes associated with them. Since we're on the topic of icons, let's look at some icons that we should know. You'll encounter various icons as you explore the endgame atlas. First one you should recognize is the map boss icon. Not every map in PoE 2 has a boss, but those that do offer a higher loot with a tougher fight behind them. There are a couple of mechanics that are from PoE imported into PoE 2. The first one is Breach. Touching a breach spawns waves of enemies over a short time. Your objective is to take out as many as possible before it closes. Second one is Delirium. This one has a mirror that starts at the beginning of the map. And what it does is it covers the area in fog, and the fog moves along the map itself. It will spawn harder enemies, and it scales with difficulty the further you are from the mirror. The next one is Ritual. You might have seen this in the campaign itself. Basically, you activate these ritual sites in a map. Usually there are 3, sometimes it could be 4, and you fight waves of enemies within that circle. You'll earn ritual points, and you want to spend that on the reward at the end. Don't forget to do this, because a lot of times I will leave a map without spending the points, so make sure you remember to do that. And finally, you have Expedition. Expedition is pretty cool. You place explosives to excavate monster-filled areas. You decide how you want to chain the explosion, which will control how you earn the loot and which enemies you target, etc. As a beginner, try out each mechanic at least once. Later on, you can specialize in the ones that you enjoy the most and focus those rewards that you're after. There are 2 other icons I want to talk about. It's the Irradiated and the Corrupted icons. What these do is they increase the level of the area by +1, and you can stack them together to create a +2 to area levels. This can be very helpful for specifically endgame content, where you can essentially turn a tier 15 map into tier 17 or a tier 16 map into tier 18. Some people like to call it differently, like +2 or tier 18 or etc. But that's the terminology that people are using. For now, just know that these icons mean harder content and better rewards. Advanced players will use this in the endgame for boss farming, and we'll talk about this when we talk about the Atlas tree. Okay, we have already talked about plenty of things with the Atlas, with the Waystones, etc. But let's talk about what should be your number 1 objective as soon as you get to Mapping, Atlas, Waystones, Endgame, essentially. And your first objective is to find your hideout. Now, this can be anywhere, so you really want to look, but it's usually extremely close to your starting location. Just check out all the nodes nearby and you'll see one that says something hideout. It can either be the Feld hideout, the Shrine hideout, the Limestone hideout, and there's probably some others that I'm missing, but primarily focus on hideout. And the reason you do this is because now you can get away from the camp, you can get away from all the other people, and you will have your home base. With your home base / hideout, you can essentially move everything around to how you like it. You can customize where your map device is, where your stash is, where the NPCs are, and your crafting benches, and customize to efficiency, customize to the way you want it to look, etc. Having a hideout streamlines your routine for mapping and makes your endgame more efficient. As you continue to explore the Atlas, you'll come across these nodes that are called Lost Towers. These are tower maps that after you complete them, you can insert the Precursor tablets. These tablets provide special buffs to surrounding areas, and they even add special mechanics such as the ones we talked about. Advanced players will stack multiple towers in one region to create a juice cluster of maps. This way they can earn more profit or do certain content that they really want to do. Early on, don't stress if you don't have the perfect tablets, just know that this is the next level of juicing once you master the basics. Now if you do come across some tablets, feel free to use them because it will give the irradiated buff to nearby areas, which will help with progression by increasing the area level, allowing you to get higher tier of Waystones. Alright, let's talk about the Atlas tree and what I focused on early for progression. Now, the main thing I took were these higher tier Waystones. This way I can just continuously to go up in tier. I focused on getting these 4 first. Then I focused on getting quantity of Waystones so that more of them drop in my maps. I worked my way down and I made it to High Road, which is again 20% chance to have a higher tier of Waystones. This is really nice again for progression. Now, if you have a strong build, you can use this Keystone, but you have to be careful because this also affects unique monsters, and giving them additional modifiers makes them increasingly difficult. Now, if you don't want to take this, then you can end up taking the rare monsters by increasing how many rare monsters you have. And this one allows you to duplicate 1 rare monster. Again, it'll give you more loot. Towards the end, you could look into magic monsters if you want. Another strategy, and more so for late game, are these precursors, which I think they can be used early game as well, because having the precursors gives you the irradiated effect on your maps, which increases the area level by 1. So this is going to be really nice while progressing. Essentially, you'll be doing 1 tier higher all the time if you are doing those irradiated maps, which is really nice. Speaking of progression, something that you can do is use the 3-to-1 recipe. Now, this allows you to combine 3 Waystones of the same tier in the Reforged bench to get 1 of the next tier. This is useful in a pinch if you're missing that next tier map. I would primarily use this early game, so I could convert my tier 1 maps to tier 2 to tier 3. This way, if I'm buying it from Doriani, it's very simple. I wouldn't continue to buy it from Doriani and converting all the way up to tier 5 or etc. because it would cost a lot of gold. If you're still struggling to get those higher tier maps, make sure you juice your maps and try to use those tablets that I talked about earlier to get the irradiated buff. Also look for the corruption buff, and maybe you could even stack the irradiated and the corruption buff to get even more area level. That way you'll get higher map tiers. Okay, one tip I can give for mapping as well is to have these tabs where I just sort of like dump everything in. So what I do is after I finish doing a map, I'll come to my stash tab, I'll dump everything into what I call dump tabs, and I have these dump tabs at a set price. So if somebody wants to buy them, they'll just buy them from here, right? I have them set to 2 exiles, but you can start with 1 exiles or whatever price you want to have. And after some time, I'll come back to look at them, right? And if they get full, I'll go back to my old tab, right? So I have 4 here. I'll go to the one that filled up first, and it seems like no one's buying this, and I'll take all the rare items. I'll just type in rare, pick up all these rare items, and then I'll just go to this particular merchant and I'll disenchant and I'll get a bunch of regal shards. And this is how I sustain my regal orbs, so I could continuously turn my normal maps into magic maps first with the transmutation and augmentation, and then I could use regal orbs, since as you can see I don't have that many alchemy orbs. One advanced tip I wanted to give is kind of to just show you an example of how to stack the towers. So here I have a bunch of these towers, and I was experimenting with delirium tablets. So here you can see I have a whole bunch of different tablets that are stacked to give me more simulacrum splinters, more rare monsters, you know, having more mods, rarity, etc. Here's another example. As you can see, not all the towers are in range, so this one has a little bit less of the modifiers, but this is an example of having a bunch of towers where you can like stack up all the modifiers of tablets into one section. You could do this with a whole bunch of different towers. Over here I'm doing it with the Waystones, so this will help me get a lot of Waystones. And that's the big picture. We covered everything from the basics of Waystones, map tiers, juicing methods, advanced tools like Precursor towers and tablets, and also we talked about Atlas passives. PoE 2's Endgame is designed to let you tailor your experience, so take it at your own pace. Try out different mechanics, figure out what you enjoy, and then sort of specialize into them with tablets, etc. Now, this is a beginner's guide. I did not go into the Citadel and some of the other endgame mechanics, as I have yet to discover them myself. I didn't talk about the map boss Atlas tree. That's something I'll talk about a little bit later. This video is going to be pretty long anyways, so I hope for beginners this helps out. And if this guide did help you out, give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more PoE 2 content, drop any questions you have in the comments. I'm happy to help out. Thanks for watching and happy mapping. I'm Sid Vicious and I will see you later. Peace.